You're one of the Hollywood actors who's known for the enthusiasm with which he gets into things like political.
Because any reasonable person must understand that a penal system as we have it almost anywhere in the world is brutal beyond any description.
Charlie Chaplin was a child
Your mother passed away how recently?
Last in 91, in September, the end of September.
So she saw none of it.
Spencer Tracy, a teenage Judy Garland. Clark Gable ran systematic exploitation campaigns. Joan Crawford tore her own children.
There was the extreme difficulty that I had with my mother. She was going, I think, crazy. Mm-hmm. And she was behaving in an extremely irrational way.
Hollywood's golden age was built on monsters. For decades, their crimes were buried by studio fixers, corrupt officials, and a conspiracy of silence that protected profits over people. So, let's get into it. The pattern was established early. In 1918, when Charlie Chaplin was 29 years old, he married 16-year-old Mildred Harris. The marriage lasted 2 years before she escaped his control. But Chaplin had learned something valuable. The younger they were, the easier they were to manipulate. When 15-year-old Lita Gray was cast in The Gold Rush, Chaplin began his campaign immediately. He isolated her from family and friends, convinced her that her career depended entirely on his approval. By 1924, Gray was pregnant and still only 16 years old. Chaplin rushed Gray to Mexico for a secret wedding ceremony to avoid statutory rape charges. For 3 years, he subjected her to what divorce court documents described as revolting, degrading, and offensive treatment. When Gray finally escaped in 1927, her divorce testimony detailed years of psychological manipulation and forced acts. The proceedings sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Studio executives couldn't silence Gray entirely. The legal proceedings were too public, but they ensured future victims never made it to court. The Chaplin case became the blueprint for cover-ups that would protect predators for decades. Chaplin's fourth marriage in 1943 revealed his true nature. Una O'Neill was 18. He was 54. FBI files revealed that Chaplin had first approached O'Neill when she was 12, cultivating her family and positioning himself as a mentor. 6 years of grooming conditioned her so thoroughly that she saw the marriage as inevitable. Spencer Tracy's carefully cultivated image as America's father figure concealed one of Hollywood's most violent predators. MGM executives knew exactly what they were protecting when they created the Tracy Squad, a full-time team of a doctor, ambulance driver, and 4 security guards whose only job was cleaning up Tracy's crimes. The squad's most frequent calls involved Tracy's violent actresses who couldn't resist without destroying their careers. Studio security files documented dozens of incidents where the squad threatened victims, destroyed evidence, and ensured complaints never reached law enforcement. Tracy's most shocking crime was his systematic Judy Garland during a 3-year period when he was 36. Multiple MGM employees witnessed Tracy isolating Garland in his dressing room, subjecting her to unwanted contact, and threatening fired if she resisted. When Garland became pregnant with Tracy's child in 1940, studio fixer Howard Strickling arranged an abortion that haunted the young performer for life. Medical records showed Garland was coerced into the procedure against her will and without psychological support. Tracy's on-set behavior terrorized cast and crew. During A Guy Named Joe, witnesses reported Tracy whispering graphic to co-star Irene Dunne during romantic scenes, describing what he planned to do after filming concluded. The systematic protection of Tracy's crimes involved corruption at every level. Studio executives, directors, and publicists all participated because Tracy generated too much revenue to be disciplined. His wholesome screen persona was deliberately crafted to make accusations seem implausible to the public. Clark Gable's transformation into the King of Hollywood was built on systematic sexual violence that escalated over 3 decades. The 1935 assault on Loretta Young during filming of Call of the Wild marked his transition from opportunistic predator to systematic criminal. Young disappeared for months after filming, returning to announce her intention to adopt baby Judy Lewis. The child was Gable's daughter, conceived during what Young later described that left her with no memory of consenting. Young's 60-year silence reflected her understanding that accusing Gable would have ended her career. Gable maintained relationships with Los Angeles brothels, where aspiring actresses and studio employees were delivered for his entertainment. Madame Lee Francis, who operated one establishment, later testified that Gable paid premium rates to ensure victims' silence afterward. MGM's protection extended to covering up multiple pregnancies from his assault. When Jean Harlow became pregnant during their affair, executives forced her into an abortion and arranged a sham marriage with cinematographer Harold Rawson. The marriage lasted exactly 8 months, long enough for the scandal to fade. Gable's personal journals, discovered after his 1960 death, contained detailed records of hundreds of encounters, many involving coercion or violence. The journals included rating systems for victims' appearance and compliance, treating human beings like commodities to be evaluated and discarded. His systematic approach to victim selection targeted women from troubled backgrounds who lacked family support or financial resources to challenge him legally. Studio talent scouts provided Gable with background information on potential victims, including family situations and psychological vulnerabilities. Even today, Gable's reputation as a romantic leading man overshadows documented evidence of his crimes, demonstrating the lasting power of Hollywood's propaganda machine. Errol Flynn's 1943 trial for statutory revealed an industry-wide conspiracy to protect profitable stars regardless of their crimes. 2 teenage Betty Hansen and Peggy Satterley found courage to report Flynn's Los Angeles police, describing similar patterns of predatory behavior. Both victims described identical scenarios. Flynn would invite them aboard his yacht, Sirocco, for weekend parties, provide alcohol and drugs, then while they were incapacitated. Flynn called his special cocktail of alcohol and sedatives his Flynn Special, designed to incapacitate victims while leaving them conscious enough to be manipulated. Flynn's defense attorney Jerry Giesler pioneered strategies that would protect Hollywood predators for decades. Rather than defending Flynn's innocence, Giesler attacked the victims' credibility, subjecting them to invasive medical examinations designed to humiliate them into withdrawing accusations. The trial revealed Flynn's systematic operation for procuring young women. Yacht crew members testified about weekend parties where teenage girls arrived voluntarily but left traumatized and often pregnant. Warner Brothers executives provided unlimited legal resources while bribing potential witnesses and planting favorable media stories. Flynn's acquittal sent a clear message that Hollywood stars were immune from prosecution. The jury accepted Giesler's argument that victims were asking for it by associating with a movie star, establishing precedents that would protect other predators. The aftermath proved that accusations could actually enhance a male star's reputation if properly managed. Flynn's image as a swashbuckling adventurer became more appealing to audiences who saw his legal troubles as evidence of masculine prowess rather than criminal behavior. Flynn's continued success after the trial demonstrated how completely the studio system had corrupted judicial processes, creating a framework where celebrity status provided immunity from consequences. Tallulah Bankhead's exploitation of young men revealed how female predators operated with even greater impunity than their male counterparts, using society's assumptions about gender to avoid accountability for systematic sex crimes. Bankhead's boasts about seducing 185 people by age 30 weren't casual confessions. They were deliberate provocations designed to normalize predatory behavior while making it seem consensual rather than exploitation of vulnerable young people. Her targeting of underage students at exclusive preparatory schools demonstrated sophisticated victim selection. Bankhead identified young men from wealthy families who lacked emotional support, focusing on those with absent fathers or dysfunctional relationships that made them vulnerable to manipulation by a glamorous adult figure. British intelligence files documented Bankhead's systematic at Eton College, revealing international scope of her operation. MI5 investigators found evidence of ongoing exploitation that school administrators had ignored because they valued connections to Hollywood glamour more than protecting students. Bankhead's daily use and excessive drinking weren't just personal vices. They were tools for incapacitating victims and providing plausible deniability. Young men who report told they had simply consumed too much alcohol and misremembered consensual encounters. Studio executives provided Bankhead with access to young male performers, understanding exactly what she intended while considering her behavior useful for maintaining control over ambitious actors who might challenge studio authority. Legal authorities refused to prosecute despite multiple complaints, assuming young men couldn't be real victims by women. This gender bias made it impossible for Bankhead's victims to receive justice even when they found courage to report their experiences. The psychological damage created lasting trauma affecting victims throughout their lives, with many developing substance problems and relationship difficulties never connected to their Mickey Rooney's evolution from exploited child star to ruthless predator demonstrated how Hollywood deliberately created monsters from its youngest victims, then protected those monsters when they began destroying others. Rooney's early trauma as a child performer had subjected him to systematic, but rather than developing empathy, his experiences transformed him into someone who understood exactly how to exploit the system's vulnerabilities for his own predatory purposes. His treatment of 12-year-old Elizabeth Taylor during 1944's National Velvet revealed victim-turned-predator psychology. Rooney systematically undermined Taylor's confidence through verbal and physical intimidation, replicating techniques that had been used against him during his own childhood exploitation. The escalation to physical violence occurred as Rooney gained industry power. His 8 marriages were characterized by domestic violence, financial and sexual coercion that reflect growing confidence that consequences would never materialize regardless of his behavior. MGM executives understood that Rooney's transformation was a direct result of their own systematic, but they chose protection over addressing institutional problems. His continued profitability made criminal behavior an acceptable cost of doing business. Organized crime connections helped Rooney intimidate victims into silence. When his third wife charges in 1951, death threats from professional criminals forced her to drop the case after her attorney advised that pursuing charges would endanger her family. MGM's protection involved systematic corruption of child welfare agencies and educational institutions supposed to monitor his interactions with young performers. Social workers and tutors were bribed to ignore while providing false testimony about Rooney's character. The most tragic aspect was how Rooney's transformation created additional victims, likely to continue the cycle, perpetuating exploitation patterns across multiple generations of damaged performers. Jean Harlow's evolution from exploitation victim to accomplice revealed how the studio system corrupted victims so completely they became willing participants in the same criminal network that had destroyed their innocence. Harlow's early exploitation by Howard Hughes established her as currency within Hollywood's criminal economy. Hughes didn't just her personally. He used her to entertain business associates and political allies, teaching her that survival required accepting degradation while remaining silent. Her marriage to producer Paul Bern in 1932 was an escape attempt that instead placed her at the center of Hollywood's most orchestrated assassination. Bern had been gathering evidence of systematic, making him too dangerous to continue operating independently. The plot involved multiple participants: Bern's estranged wife, Dorothy Millette, MGM executives providing logistical support, and Harlow herself participating in staging the crime scene. Her behavior after Bern's death, returning to work within days and showing no grief, suggested prior knowledge of the planned killing. Irving Thalberg and Louis B. Mayer personally supervised crime scene staging, ensuring physical evidence supported the suicide narrative while eliminating anything suggesting homicide. The forged suicide note was created by studio writers who had studied Bern's handwriting. Harlow's subsequent relationship with boxer Max Baer involved her deeper in organized crime activities, using celebrity status to legitimize gambling operations and money laundering schemes. Her presence at illegal establishments provided cover while making her complicit in ongoing felonies. The most disturbing aspect was how survival required participation in the same system that had originally victimized her. This psychological destruction was often more devastating than original because it eliminated possibilities for future resistance. Harlow's 1937 death at 26, officially kidney failure, occurred under circumstances suggesting she had become too dangerous. Her symptoms were consistent with poisoning, and she had been receiving anonymous threats indicating someone planned to eliminate her as a potential witness. Louis B. Mayer's systematic exploitation of child performers represented the pinnacle of institutionalized evil, creating industrial-scale operations that destroyed hundreds of young lives while generating enormous profits for criminal conspirators. Mayer's recruitment targeted children from desperate families who could be controlled through economic manipulation. MGM talent scouts identified vulnerable children whose parents could be convinced to sign contracts granting the studio complete control over their lives in exchange for modest compensation. 13-year-old Judy Garland became the template for systematic replicated throughout the industry. Mayer personally supervised Garland's exploitation, conducting career consultations where the teenager endured unwanted physical contact while discussing professional obligations. Medical records from MGM physicians documented systematic drugging of child performers with amphetamines, sedatives, and experimental medications designed to control behavior and maintain productivity during schedules that would have been illegal for adults. These drugs caused permanent damage that shortened victims' lives. Sexual exploitation was facilitated by studio employees who procured victims, arranged private meetings, and systematically destroyed evidence. Security personnel delivered children to Mayer's office while preventing interruption sessions disguised as auditions. Organized crime connections provided enforcement for intimidating victims and families who might report. Children who resisted received visits from professional criminals who made clear that continued resistance would endanger their family's safety. Corruption of child welfare agencies required systematic bribery of social workers and teachers supposed to monitor young performers. These professionals received financial incentives to ignore while providing false testimony when legal problems arose. The most tragic legacy was creating a generation of damaged performers statistically likely to become predators themselves, perpetuating victimization cycles across generations. Joan Crawford's reputation as Hollywood's ultimate professional concealed systematic psychological warfare that destroyed careers, relationships, and lives through techniques often more devastating than physical violence. Crawford operated intelligence networks rivaling federal agencies, employing agents and publicists who provided compromising information about rivals for blackmail and character assassination. Her files contained intimate details about colleagues' personal lives and psychological vulnerabilities. Adopted children, Christina and Christopher, revealed her sadistic personality. Rather than providing stability, she used them as publicity props while subjecting them to psychological manipulation designed to maintain absolute control over their emotional development. Her rivalry with Bette Davis became the proving ground for psychological warfare techniques later used against anyone challenging her position. She studied Davis obsessively, identifying insecurities that could be exploited through orchestrated campaigns of rumors and professional sabotage. Crawford's manipulation extended to entire production crews and studio departments. She created conflicts between cast and crew members, encouraging divisions she could exploit while ensuring potential challengers were too busy fighting each other to threaten her authority. Her alcoholism served as both motivation for violence and excuse for increasingly erratic behavior that terrorized everyone who worked with her. Crew members learned to fear her drinking binges because they were followed by episodes of verbal and physical. The financial resources Crawford devoted to maintaining intelligence networks and revenge campaigns demonstrated the profitability of systematic evil within Hollywood's economy. Studios funded her destructive activities because her box office value exceeded the costs of covering up crimes. Most disturbing was Crawford's ability to present herself as a victim of industry sexism while actively participating in the same exploitation system she claimed was oppressing her. Howard Hughes' vast wealth allowed him to create Hollywood's most sophisticated predatory operation, combining movie production with unlimited resources to exploit young women while remaining immune from legal consequences. Hughes' recruitment operated through his production company, hiring aspiring actresses for minor roles while housing them in complexes he owned and controlling every aspect of their lives. Women were forbidden from dating, required for screen tests at any hour, and subjected to invasive medical examinations. The screen tests were sexual auditions where Hughes evaluated women for willingness to participate in degrading activities. Those who refused were blacklisted, while those who complied were promised starring roles that rarely materialized, trapping them in exploitation cycles. His systematic exploitation of Jean Harlow, beginning as a teenager, established templates for long-term victim control replicated with hundreds of other young women. Harlow's platinum transformation wasn't artistic vision. It was Hughes marking his property while marketing her availability. Hughes operated a private brothel disguised as a talent agency, serving multiple criminal purposes beyond personal gratification. He entertained organized crime figures and corrupt officials while gathering blackmail material to protect his business interests from legal scrutiny. His connections to federal agencies, particularly J. Edgar Hoover, created arrangements where evidence of crimes was used for political leverage rather than prosecution. Hoover's visits to Hughes's facilities were intelligence-gathering operations designed to expand FBI blackmail capabilities. Multiple stunt pilot deaths during Hughes productions weren't accidental. They resulted from deliberate disregard for safety in pursuit of spectacular footage. He forced aviators to attempt dangerous stunts without proper equipment, treating their lives as acceptable losses. The psychological deterioration Hughes experienced reflected corruption from unlimited power combined with complete immunity, creating a personality divorced from normal empathy. George Reeves's 1959 death represented Hollywood's most brazen assassination, eliminating a beloved public figure who had gathered too much evidence about systematic criminal activities to be allowed to continue living. Reeves's transformation from struggling actor to television icon as Superman had given him unprecedented visibility and moral authority that made him uniquely dangerous to the criminal network controlling Hollywood. His clean image and association with justice made him the perfect potential whistleblower. The evidence Reeves accumulated included documentation of covered-up crimes, systematic financial crimes, and corruption reaching the highest government levels. His relationship with Toni Mannix, wife of MGM's chief fixer, provided access to confidential files detailing decades of criminal activities. Reeves's decision to write a tell-all book exposing Hollywood's operations represented an existential threat to everyone who had participated in or profited from systematic. The evidence could have destroyed careers, ended political ambitions, and resulted in prosecutions dismantling the entire studio system. Eddie Mannix's assassination of Reeves was carefully planned to appear as suicide, while sending clear messages to other potential whistleblowers. The crime scene staging was sophisticated enough to fool casual investigators, while leaving inconsistencies to terrify anyone who understood real circumstances. The immediate cancellation of the Superman series after Reeves's death, despite enormous popularity, demonstrated how serious the threat had been. Network executives sacrificed millions in revenue to eliminate any possibility that continued investigation might expose the conspiracy. Toni Mannix's later confession that her husband ordered Reeves's assassination was dismissed as elderly ravings, but her detailed knowledge of planning and execution suggested she had been an unwilling witness to premeditated homicide. The successful cover-up established precedents for eliminating threats too visible for traditional intimidation methods. Paul Bern's 1932 death marked the beginning of Hollywood's systematic elimination campaign, establishing protocols for assassinating industry insiders who gathered too much evidence about criminal activities to be controlled through traditional intimidation. Bern's position as MGM producer had given him access to confidential records, documenting systematic embezzlement, tax evasion, and money laundering operations connected to organized crime figures using studio facilities for legitimizing illegal revenue streams. The decision to recruit Dorothy Millette as Bern's assassin demonstrated sophisticated planning. Millette's mental illness and financial desperation made her an ideal weapon who could be convinced to commit homicide while providing plausible deniability for criminal conspirators. The choreographed scene was designed to look like suicide while ensuring Bern's investigation files would be destroyed before discovery by law enforcement. Irving Thalberg and Louis B. Mayer arrived before police, removing incriminating evidence and planting false clues supporting the suicide narrative. Jean Harlow's complicity transformed her from innocent victim to criminal conspirator, demonstrating how the studio system corrupted everyone it touched. Her participation in staging the scene and maintaining the false story made her vulnerable to future blackmail. The forged suicide note providing official justification was created by studio writers who had studied Bern's handwriting. This document established the principle that official records could be manufactured to support any narrative protecting studio interests. Millette's assassination 2 days later eliminated the primary witness while providing additional evidence that grief over Bern's suicide had driven her to take her own life. Her death was staged as drowning, but maritime records showed she couldn't swim. The successful cover-up proved the studio system could eliminate threats permanently while maintaining public narratives protecting institutional interests. Kirk Douglas's rise to stardom revealed how sociopathic personalities thrived within Hollywood's criminal ecosystem, using charm and manipulation to advance careers while systematically destroying anyone who might threaten their position or expose their true nature. Douglas's psychological warfare techniques were more sophisticated than simple intimidation. He would befriend vulnerable performers, learn their deepest insecurities, then orchestrate campaigns designed to exploit those weaknesses while maintaining plausible deniability for his role in their destruction. His intelligence operation rivaled federal agencies, employing networks of agents and publicists who provided compromising information about colleagues for blackmail, career sabotage, and personal revenge. These files contained intimate details about relationships and criminal activities Douglas would exploit whenever competition arose. The systematic nature of Douglas's predatory behavior extended beyond professional rivalries to encompass sexual exploitation of young actresses lacking power to resist. His production company, Bryna Productions, became a front for systematic where vulnerable performers were hired and then subjected to degrading conditions and sexual coercion. Douglas's organized crime connections provided enforcement capabilities for eliminating serious threats while maintaining his public image as a respectable entertainer and political activist. When victims attempted legal remedies, they received visits from professional criminals who made clear that resistance would endanger their safety. Institutional protection from multiple studios demonstrated how completely the industry had been corrupted by criminal elements who saw predatory behavior as acceptable business practice. Executives actively facilitated his access to victims while providing legal resources to cover up subsequent crimes. Most chilling was Douglas's ability to use charitable work and political activism as cover for criminal activities, presenting himself as a moral leader while privately engaging in systematic exploitation of vulnerable populations he publicly claimed to support. Eddie Mannix's evolution from organized crime muscle to Hollywood's chief problem solver represented the complete merger of entertainment operations with professional criminal enterprises, creating an assassination program that operated for decades with complete impunity. Mannix's background in construction work for crime figures had taught him that the most effective solution to persistent problems was permanent elimination of people causing those problems. His transition to studio security simply gave him access to more sophisticated resources and legal protection. The Patricia Douglas case in 1937 established Mannix's reputation as someone who could make serious legal threats disappear through violence, intimidation, and systematic evidence destruction. When Douglas attempted to expose systematic exploitation at MGM, Mannix orchestrated a terror campaign, forcing her to abandon her case and flee Los Angeles. His methods included actual physical violence against victims and potential witnesses. Douglas received a brutal beating that hospitalized her for weeks, while her attorney was threatened with disbarment if he continued representation. The message was clear: challenging MGM would result in permanent consequences. The network of corrupt officials Mannix maintained included police detectives, prosecutors, judges, and federal agents who received regular payments for protecting studio interests. Crime reports involving major stars would be routinely lost. Evidence would disappear, and prosecutors would decline charges regardless of evidence strength. Mannix's assassination of George Reeves demonstrated how his methods had evolved to encompass high-profile eliminations, requiring sophisticated staging and extensive cover-up operations. The Superman star's death was planned months in advance, with multiple contingency plans. The psychological pressure Mannix applied extended beyond direct intimidation to systematic campaigns designed to drive targets to actual suicide or mental breakdown. Several industry figures who had gathered evidence died under circumstances suggesting they had been driven to despair through calculated torture. His casual attitude toward violence, documented in witness statements, revealed how normalized assassination had become within Hollywood's power structure. Spade Cooley's brutal execution of his wife, Ella May, in 1961 marked the violent end of Hollywood's golden age, representing the ultimate collapse of moral boundaries systematically destroyed by decades of institutional protection for criminal behavior. Cooley's transformation from successful entertainer to paranoid killer reflected psychological damage from unlimited power combined with complete immunity from consequences. His television show, movie contracts, and recording success had created delusions of grandeur, making him increasingly dangerous. The systematic preceding the execution had been escalating for years, with Cooley subjecting Ella May to psychological torture designed to break her spirit and isolate her from potential help. His accusations of infidelity weren't based on evidence. They were projections of guilt over criminal activities that had made him wealthy. The night of the killing revealed complete absence of moral constraints resulting from decades of institutional protection for violent behavior. Cooley subjected Ella May to hours of torture in front of their teenage daughters, treating them as entertainment while demonstrating absolute power over his family. Crime scene evidence documented systematic sadism ongoing for months before the final execution. Ella May's injuries showed patterns of repeated that would have been impossible to hide from neighbors, friends, and medical professionals who had chosen silence rather than intervention. Cooley's organized crime connections had provided both weapons used in the killing and psychological conditioning that made extreme violence seem like an acceptable solution to personal problems. His association with professional criminals had normalized brutality while providing models for inflicting maximum psychological damage. The trial became a media spectacle exposing the entertainment industry's role in creating and protecting violent criminals. Witness testimony revealed how Cooley's fame and wealth had intimidated potential interveners while providing cover for escalating that everyone had witnessed but failed to report. The conviction and life sentence represented a fundamental shift in how the justice system handled crimes involving entertainment figures, marking the end of an era when even celebrity status couldn't protect someone from consequences for the most brutal crimes. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.